microphones are on, so don't say anything you don't want recorded.
Okay. Is Mr. Mencken coming or?
I have had no communication, so.
All right, 6 o'clock. All right. 6 o'clock in the lovely town of Lee, New Hampshire, June 23rd, 2025. Call the meeting to order. First order of business is called comments. If anybody has a public comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and address your comments to the board and not to the audience.
Oh. Yeah, I would see the air conditioner's frozen up. Thank you for noticing.
Was that a public comment? No?
Word out of me.
Write that down.
Any chance you could text Steve, let him know
Looks like there's more.
water is coming through the ceiling as we speak.
Any public comments other than the air conditioner goes up? No? All right, next order of business. Appointments, Charlie Jennison.
Good evening.
Hello.
Let's see, I'll give you all of the documents here that I have.
Oh,
I've
okay.
got copies over here that I can hold on to. Thanks. So I'm here to ask the board about an easement that we have on our barn and whether or not it will affect installation of solar panels. And the picture that you see there is what people can see from the road right now of the structure and the roof. Now, the only completely new component of the barn actually was that metal replacement roof. The rest of the barn is reconstructed from original dairy barn we got from, as you know, Scott, from Berwick. So we were hoping that, under the circumstances, we put solar panels on the barn. That wouldn't obscure any of the, the wood part of the structure. So
Anything else or anything else?
no, that was it. I mean, we have, I guess what they call it.
The background information, Charlie?
I'm sorry?
Maybe a little bit of the background information. It's on that right in front of you at the bottom.
Right. Well, I mean, I could read what it says here. The barn collapsed the original barn collapsed in 2015, and then fortunately we were insured, so we were able to reconstruct, and we wanted to, we did something very similar to the original construction, and even, as a matter of fact, used some of the beams from the original barn to build a new one. Because Ann was on the Heritage Commission at the time, she thought it might be possible to apply for an easement on the tax on the barn. We found the easement deed and noticed that there is a clause in here that says that if we aren't able to do it, aren't able just to put panels on, that there's a percentage of the full assessment that we would have to pay in order to, So we're here tonight to ask the board if we can't just put panels on the barn and under the conditions that we had it before, how we would go about, taking care of paying the rest of the easement.
As far as I understand, we're not taxing solar rates at the moment. They're not assessed, right, correct?
That is correct.
Yep. And I think, at least for me, the only thing is, at least from my view, is it aesthetically pleasing? Is it detracting from the look of the barn? So as far as I can see, all this is solar panels, correct?
That would be solar panels right
Yeah.
in that area, correct?
So really, it's not really detracting. It kind of looks like you've put a gray roof on it.
That's kind of what I thought.
That's my opinion. Mr. John, do you have any questions?
Well, I'm looking over your easement here, and it says, it's pretty straightforward. The property is located on High Road, which is designated scenic road, therefore the bond is highly visible. Doesn't say whether there's solar panels on it, or it doesn't say, it says it needs to be, I would assume it, to interpret this, you need to be able to see it from the road. It has the look of a bond that you had before, that was taken down, well, it came down, and then you rebuilt it again, and you're just putting solar panels on the roof. So I agree with Mr. Bugby. I don't see this as a major issue at this point. I still consider it to be a scenic bond and visible from the road by interpretation of what's in this easement at this time.
Okay.
Yes.
So I move to grant a waiver on the Genesis Historic Preservation barn easement to allow the installation of solar panels on the barn roof located at 34 High Road, Lee, New Hampshire. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No discussion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Do you need to keep the paperwork, or?
You can have that back.
Can have it, okay.
Thank you very much. Let's hope it generates a lot of electricity.
We do too.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.
Regular business, town administrator.
Yeah, I have a bunch under miscellaneous, but I will start with a request to encumber fire radio funds. This is from the fire chief, who couldn't be here this evening. The original motion that I gave you started with move to encumber the 80,000 and also included some specific wording that was probably a little too specific. Mr. Tappan sent me an email advising that you might want to say treat as encumbered as opposed to encumbered. So I had actually rewritten that motion.
Now, does the chief have a PO for this particular thing? Is there something in the works?
There is something in the works, and I can give you a little bit. The specifics that were originally brought up are probably not the specifics that he's going to use anymore. I've been working with Nick Bordaro, VP from Allcom Technologies, to receive a final order and SOW for the project. They've been hard to get a hold of this past year, but it's the company that Barrington and Madbury Fire both use for their repeaters and towers. I'm hoping to hear something from them shortly. On June 18th, I heard back from Nick stating he was working to verify the detailed scope of the project so they can provide us with correct information. Because of the lease cost and extra costs, we have moved away from using the tower across the street from the racetrack and would like to utilize the public safety complex, which can house the equipment, has a backup generator, and we would not have to pay to lease the site. I have spoken with Karen in regard to permits and what we would need to do through the town to move forward. When I receive all the information from Allcom, I will share this with the two of you, in particular the height of the tower. And the initial estimate that the fire chief had was for a substantial height on the tower, probably more than you or the community would want to approve. So we've gone back, and I know Scott had worked with them to get a much lower tower as an option. He's also been talking to Mr. Bullock at the DPW department, who's interested in a new repeater for the highway radio system. And we'll probably be trying to incorporate the highway into the project as it moves forward as well.
So, do we have a contract or a purchase order in place with these people or not yet?
He does not, but because of the fact that this was a special warrant article, it does not need to have a contract in place for the board to treat it as if it were encumbered for one more year.
But is it a special warrant article?
It is a special warrant article, yes.
I didn't think it was, but
It definitely meets the definition. Because the money is coming from an existing fund, that's what makes it special.
also it says motion to encumber 80,000 approved in FY14. I think it's 24.
It's
isn't it?
24, yes.
Mr. Tappan.
John Tappan, Chair of the Trustees of Trust Funds. Under the municipal budget law, RSA 37:2, lapse of appropriations, there's only one way for an appropriation amount to be encumbered, And that's stated in 37:2, Roman 1, when, quote, "The amount has, prior to the end of that fiscal year, become encumbered by a legally enforceable obligation created by contract or otherwise to any person for the expenditure of that amount. There is no other way that an appropriation amount can be encumbered." But RSA 32:7, Roman 5, provides a way for special warrant article appropriations to be treated as if they were encumbered. There are very important differences that the trustees of trust funds do have to pay attention to. When an amount of an appropriation becomes encumbered, there's no time limit on delivery and payment. For example, fire apparatus. You know, it takes 2, 3, 4 years to produce custom fire apparatus. Well, if you place the order and sign the contract, it doesn't matter that it may take 4 years before it's delivered and paid for. But only the amount under obligation is encumbered, which is not necessarily the full appropriation. When an appropriation is treated as encumbered, there is a time limit. It can only be for 1 year, 1 additional fiscal year. But the full amount of the appropriation is available. So if you actually had a contract, then you would have a choice. Do you want to consider it as encumbered? And that would only cover the amount that you signed for. Or because it is a special warrant article, the money's coming from reserve fund, you can vote to treat it as encumbered, and then the full 80,000 is available, but only for 1 additional year.
Okay. So, this
This is a good one.
The tweak one.
The tweak, except for the date.
The 2024 instead of 2014.
This one's just.
Yeah, we fixed it.
That's actually not.
Did you see what he just,
I saw John's email this morning, and this is similar to that. Yeah, which I don't think differs in any particular point from the one I gave you.
which one do you want to do, Mr. John? Sure? We'll do sure. We like
Less
short.
information, the better sometimes. Gives a little broadening.
So I move to treat as encumbered for 1 additional fiscal year the 80,000 which appropriated via warrant article 10 on March 12th, 2024 for the purchase of radio infrastructure for the fire equipment capital reserve fund. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next.
Okay, under miscellaneous, just touch on a few things. Tax revenue is coming in fast now after today's, or at least after I left today. I believe we were just about $6 million, which is good because we still have a $1.2 million school payment to make for this month that we held off on a little bit. But that will be going shortly.
And you let the school district know it's a little bit late.
Yeah. I am going to send the department head, across departments, department head notice that the board would like to meet with the department heads at least once a month moving forward in this new fiscal year. I think that was the plan that was brought up a month or two ago, and not had much success, but I'm going to talk with everyone and we should get on board, and I'll have a schedule for you so you can see the police chief, the fire chief, DPW director. On a regular basis, the doors were completed at the town office today. We did the town clerk's door last week. Had a little bit of difficulty with it, but we now have a door that locks, closes, and has a window in it, so we're not opening a steel door directly onto people standing on a ramp as they're trying to come in. And we did the front door on the select board office, and this morning that was complete.
Do we get to take the doors with us when we get out of that door?
Take the doors and anything else we fixed. The air conditioning worked pretty much for the better part of today. By about 4 o'clock, it had started to wane, but we're getting some performance out of it. Other than that, I don't have much. I have old business and new business that we can talk about, but I'll just leave that where they are.
Okay. Next, consent agenda. Anything, Mr. John, that you want to pull?
No.
So I move to accept the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
None.
None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Got things for us to sign? I think there's some assessment things.
And there's good minutes.
What's the interest we have to pay on these abatements? It's still 8%?
I believe so, but I did not ascertain that before the meeting.
Okay.
Those were just a correction, so they're kind of,
Looks like this, yeah.
the names, they broke off a piece, sold it to another person, but the names got
The
switched.
bill went to the wrong
So we're just,
folks.
Wrong side.
so in order legally, we have to abate these and
No.
resend.
Yeah, I understand that, but the people that got overcharged, they've already paid their taxes, I would think. I mean, they already-
I don't think so,
I
they
don't
both
think
have
they
been
did.
holding off on this.
They got a hold of each other and discussed it.
So we don't have to pay interest?
No.
Yeah,
That's what you're looking at now.
yeah, if you can find out, I think it's 8%, something like that.
I believe it is 8. There it is.
Okay, old business.
I did send the email to the board on Friday, I believe. That was from an email from Jen Sis, the Director of Stratford Regional Planning, saying what Lee would lose if you choose not to pay the dues. You would go from 2 representatives to 1. That 1 representative could not actually vote on commission business. They would be strictly limited to transportation and, I'm going to get this wrong, MOP or MPO, municipal projects. And you would pay full face value for any consulting work you did. You would not have an allotment of free-to-use consulting or engineering time, and you would not have a discounted rate. You would pay the full rate.
So the person will get information from the federal programs, the state programs, correct? And they'll have access to the grants as well?
My understanding is, yeah, the primary limitation is you can't vote on actual business about the commission.
So it's like operating stuff. Operating issues. Okay. Would anybody like to speak to this?
Depends, where are we going?
Personally, I will tell you, I'm not changing my vote at this particular time. Some of the things that were said in the meetings in terms of we losing grants, we losing input and information for those particular programs has not changed. We still get all that stuff. So I'm not in a condition to, or mind to change.
Can I speak?
Yes, you can, go ahead.
Catherine Casper, 16 Elder Osborne Drive, Lee, New Hampshire. I understand. I see how you can look at it as a list of things, and we get this and we don't get that. First of all, any projects we want to put in the 10-year plan, we would have to pay for the consultant fee. That's $10,000 or more. But much more importantly is the topics that come up that we discuss. If we don't bring them up, they won't get discussed about Lee. If we don't sit there with a vote, we have no say. I don't understand how the people can get up, add money to our budget. You represent us. You are representatives. If you don't speak for me, who does? And we spoke very clearly. We did everything we were supposed to do. We added the money to the budget. This is not your money in your pocket. This is the money of the town of Lee, and the Lee added money for a purpose. You then took it away. We said, no, that's not okay. We very much want to be represented as a community in our town. That's really important to us. We want our voices heard in a more important thing. I don't know if you've noticed, the weather's not great. There are floods, there are problems. We need to be part of the conversation. There's huge projects going on about how we're going to add trails and bikeways so people can get from place to place. There's projects for roads and towns and bridges. There's all kinds of things. To not be in the room because why? We addressed all your concerns. The SRPC sent you a letter and stated, after a discussion with the whole board, that we would change how we go forward with customer service. We will be giving you a survey after any project. Again, you don't ever have to do another project with them again, that's fine. But if you ever have a project, you'll have a survey where you can absolutely address every issue you had, have comments that will now go into how they do reviews for employees. You've made your point, absolutely. I get it, they get it, we see. But to take our voice away when the people you represent, said we want something, who are you to take that away? You represent us. Thank you.
Well, in my opinion, the only thing that's being taken away is the second representative in the vote on commission business. Other than that, we still get representative. They still can.
You've never been to a meeting and you don't know what happens there. So I worry that you haven't even watched an episode or a single meeting to understand why that's important. I apologize for interrupting.
Actually, after consideration, what we heard last week and being on the planning board, of course, I can hear both sides of the fence, and I do receive knowledge and how the commission works and so forth and how it does not work. But I believe that a message was sent at this point, and there seems to be enough group of people around here to hold people's feet to the fire if we have to. I assume that would. So at this point, I would move that we would reestablish the funds back in and pay for the commissions too.
David Benson's here.
Mr. Dave.
Stay.
You came in today, and we're in the middle of talking about the Stratford Regional Planning. So I don't know if Mr. LaCourse has a specific motion he would like to make.
Yeah, I move at this point is that we use the funds that were requested. I think it was $6,000
yep.
to be used towards the Stratford Regional Development Commission.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second's on the floor.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Nay. 1-1, motion fails.
Do we want Mr. Benson to know what we talked about since he just arrived? He doesn't even know what we were discussing.
He heard the motion from Mr. LaCourse.
Did he?
He seconded it.
He seconded.
But
But do you know what we're talking about, Mr. Benson?
But he didn't vote.
If you have a comment, you need to come to the podium, Ms. Casper.
Eric Johnson, 43 Demerit Avenue. My question is for Select Person Benson. Did you mean to not vote?
Yes.
You meant-
Thank you.
All right, moving on, new business.
Okay, we had a letter from the chairman of the trustees of the trust funds regarding concerns with the library request for reimbursement not being directly authorized by the select board. To my mind, that was an approved project, and those were serial payments on an ongoing bill, but clearly the trustees of the trust fund do not feel that way. I'm not sure what the board's pleasure is. I know you wanted to discuss it. I did put together a motion if you want to consider approving that. You had done this last year, actually in similar fashion. I copied the same language from last year's capital reserve request. But
It's my understanding that some of these particular expenses that make up the 92,000 were charged to, or supposedly were supposed to be charged to a different fund.
I don't know that they were supposed to be charged to a different fund. There were at least $92,000 worth of engineering costs to SMP and the other contractor as part of the original project.
Mr. Tappan, you have a comment?
John Tappan, Chair of the Trustees of Trust Funds. RSA 35:14, Roman 1 states in part, persons holding said capital reserve funds in trust, as provided in this chapter, shall hold the same until such time as the town shall have voted to withdraw funds from such capital reserve fund, or shall have named agents of the town to carry out the objects designated by the town. When the town votes to appropriate X dollars from a reserve fund to purchase Y, it's the responsibility of the trustees of trust funds to release money only for purchase of Y and not more than X dollars. If the town has delegated its authority to an agent, that agent's decisions impose the same restrictions on the trustees' actions, only for Y and not more than X. On August 19th, and it was 19th, it says 18th in the letter, the Select Board was required to retroactively approve the fiscal year 2024 appropriation of $504,000 from the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund that had been spent on library renovations without Select Board authorization. At that Select Board meeting, I stated that the spending of the $200,000 approved by the voters for fiscal year 2025 needed to be tracked so that the Select Board approval could be attained if money was needed from the reserve fund. The Select Board tried to monitor this during the year by asking the town administrator how much of the $200,000 had been spent. The answers they received did not reveal the need for money from the reserve fund because the initial library expenditures were not charged against the $200,000, but were instead entered into the town's books as coming from the reserve fund for the second year without the Select Board authorization. The authorization of a fixed or limited amount from a reserve fund does not provide a blank check just because additional money is needed or desired. When appropriations are treated that way, your decision-making authority is taken away from you.
Okay. Dave, did you have an opportunity to see this? No.
Yeah, the expenses were identified as requested initially by the library trustees. There were very explicit instructions as to what the trustees wanted to come from the $200,000 renovation fund and what they wanted to come from capital reserve funds. And those were basically tallied that way throughout the year by the bookkeeper.
Because I thought there was some tweaking that we did.
There was. They had actually requested that more money than was in the capital
Yeah,
reserve
it was.
fund come out of the capital reserve
It
fund.
wasn't that much money in there.
Okay, so this would fix it for this year, but I guess going forward, I guess if we're supposed to do something, I think the blanket thing is a little confusing. So I think when you get requests for these particular things coming out of capital reserve funds, and we're the agents, I think that that specific payment needs to come to us to get approved for going forward.
And I think, well, hopefully, we're not going to be seeing a project like this, at least in the next fiscal year, because I've been assured you're not, so.
Down the road, maybe.
Never say never. but-
Never say never.
Yeah.
Down the road.
Yeah. Okay. So I move to grant the Lee Library permission to expend $92,333.69 out of the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund for invoices associated with the completion of the Lee Library renovation project. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Dave?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. You want to talk about House Bill 457?
Yeah, we certainly can. The letter that I forwarded to the board is a letter of concern about the passage or potential passage of HB 457. It's basically asking the governor not to sign it. This was drafted by Brody, the attorney at New Hampshire Municipal Association, in conjunction with Todd Selig and the Administrators and Managers Association. Essentially, this would allow folks to change the use of any residence in a residentially zoned area in a New Hampshire town, and could essentially treat it as a boarding house. There would be no limit on the number of people you could rent individual rooms to within your home. There's a number of concerns, not the least of which is right now, if you want to change your residence from a single-family residence to a boarding house, you need to comply with fire codes, safety codes, building codes. This sort of does away with that. It also does away with planning and zoning board's ability to say, no, we don't want 27 people in your house in this residential neighborhood. It calls into question, like right now, where you have to describe the size of your septic system, talk about your water needs, that type of thing. This also would pretty much do away with that, so.
Does it affect ADUs at all, or not really?
There was separate legislation that affected ADUs, basically made the ADU a right, regardless of planning and zoning.
Those are two separate, okay.
Right. But the municipal association has significant concern about this, as does pretty much every administrator or manager in the association.
Hasn't signed this yet, so.
No, she is not. But
All right.
Brody is going to deliver the letter to her with any of the signatures that we want to add to that. I know Karen Rossi has asked that her name be added. Wayne Lehman had asked if I could have his name added.
So, are you requesting us to support this particular thing?
I would, yes, I'm requesting that you consider supporting the letter and either adding your names individually or just the Lee Select Board.
Thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, obviously, I approve of the letter. I don't approve of 457. Being on the planning board for years and as a select person for many years, is that the attempt is to try to control, I don't want to say control the growth in town, but we don't want to turn it into a boarding house. We've had major discussions over the years with respect to the density, and with the master plan basically allows us to be pastoral, and to have some commercial development, but at the same time not to be overrun. So we need to have some kind of control. So I would ask that the board actually state it as a board instead of individual signature. I think it carries more weight.
Okay. Mr. Benson, any comments? No? All right, so I guess I move that the town select board support
The letter of
the
opposition.
letter of opposition to House Bill 457. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? No. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
I will let Brody know.
Thank you. All right, anything else before we move to,
I had nothing in regular business, no.
okay, so I moved to, I moved to enter non-public session, New Hampshire RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, sections A and L. Roll call vote, first, do I have a second?
Do I have a second?
Roll call vote, Mr. Benson?
Yes.
Mr. LaCourse?
Yes.
Mr. Bugby, yes. Motion passes.
Carry that for you.
Can't agree.
I think the drip is stopped.